If you find that you really struggle in the 40 to 100 yard range, but you hit your full shots or your full swings very well, let's talk about why this could be. So I have players come to me all the time with that exact problem saying, you know, man, I hit the ball great when I'm swinging full, but as soon as I go to hit a half or a 3/4 wedge shot, I blade it, I trunk it, I shank it, I have all kinds of issues. We are going to get into one possibility here. So one concept you need to understand is the concept of hand depth, and essentially this is how far the hands are back behind the body. So if I make a full swing, I get a nice good turn with this, my hands work around the body very nicely, and at the top of the backswing, I get my hands back over my heels. So that's a pretty good amount of hand depth. If I start to turn and start to lift the arms up quite a bit, or I don't turn very effectively, and the end of this club or the hands stay a little bit more out over my toes, that's not very much hand depth. So if I make a good turn, get plenty of hand depth, the weight of the club is more behind me, the hands are more behind me, this is going to typically allow the club to shallow very nicely. But if I don't turn well or I lift the arms up, hands stay out in front of me, that keeps the weight of the club and the hands more out in front of the body. So a lot of times as players work down, they start to get this club more outside and over the top. So basically think of hand depth kind of assisting with shallowing the club. So this is where if you're making a full swing, again, you're getting a nice full turn, getting that club up and back behind you, that's great. Club's gonna end up in a pretty good spot. You shouldn't have any problems shallowing it from there. But now say you get a wedge in your hand, and I've done many videos in the past about not swinging full at wedges, and say you get a 80-yard shot and you're trying to hit a half or a 3/4 54 degree or whatever club that may be for you. And now you start making a half or a 3/4 swing. So if I bring this club back to chest high all of a sudden and I get into this position, it's not that you're doing anything wrong, but of course a half or 3/4 swing is going to be shorter than full. So if I get back into this position, you can see my hands are a little bit more out in front of the chest, not so much over the heels. End of this club is a little bit more out in front of me. And like we just went over, when the weight of the club and the hands get more out in front of you, it tends to make this club want to get a little bit steeper. And when this club gets steeper, I will see players hit it off the hosel and hit all kinds of shanks. They will have contact issues getting steep and chunking the ball, blading the ball, all kinds of things. But ideally, I don't want you to feel like as soon as you get into that 40 to 100 range, you have to start having a totally new swing or new technique. So let's talk about what we can do at setup to help this. So if I'm set up here and I say I have an 80-yard shot and I'm trying to hit a half swing 54 degree, and we know that you have trouble getting a little steep, but I don't really want you feeling like you have to rip the club inside or pull your arms across your chest or change the swing too much. One thing you can do is you can close the setup off a little bit. So we can feel like this back heel is dropping back, we'll call it 2 to 3 inches, somewhere in there. It doesn't need to be an entire foot width, but bring that back toe back a few inches. Wouldn't hurt if you want to feel like the shoulders close just a few inches as well. And now when I'm in this position where my setup is a little bit more closed than normal, this is going to tend to allow the arms to work around the body a little bit easier without having to add swing thought. So if I'm set up here where I'm nice and square and I make a turn back to this point, my hands are a little more in front of me, kind of in the middle of the chest here, but now I close the setup just a little bit and I make the same move. My hands are going to tend to want to work a little bit more low into the inside. So now when I get back to chest high, by closing the setup off, the hands get a little more behind me. Now you know when the hands get more behind you, the weight of the club is more behind you. Typically that allows the club to shallow and work down on a better plane. So if you do struggle with getting steep and have contact issues or the shanks when you do get these kind of half and 3/4 in between wedge shots, that is one possibility, is you're not doing anything wrong, but with the shorter swing it stays more out in front of you, so you tend to get steep. Try closing off the setup just a little bit. That will allow the club and the hands to work more around the body, which can allow it to shallow a little bit more effectively from there without changing the swing a whole lot. So as always, if you have any questions, please drop them in the comments below and let me know what videos you would like to see next.